The Galactic Council sat in the heart of the nebular citadel, an ancient structure of dark stone that pulsed with the rhythm of deep space. Its towering walls curved inward, a vast amphitheater built to accommodate the hundreds of species that had forged an alliance, each with its own unique form and purpose. The citadel was the epicenter of cosmic diplomacy, a place where the leaders of galaxies and civilizations gathered to discuss matters of peace, resources, and control over the infinite stretches of the universe. Today, however, the hall was filled with an undercurrent of tension. The Assembly had convened to discuss the admission of humanity into the Galactic Union, a controversial proposal that had sparked debates among the Council members. To some, humans were little more than an insignificant species with a violent history and limited technological prowess. To others, the humans represented a wild card, an unpredictable force that could either tear the fabric of peace or strengthen it in ways the Council had yet to comprehend. At the center of this storm stood Admiral Alicia Thorne, a seasoned leader who had once commanded fleets against the most formidable of alien threats. She was human, and she had been tasked with representing her species at this crucial moment in history. Her uniform was a mix of traditional human military design and advanced alien fabrics, an elegant yet functional suit that symbolized both the past and the future of her people. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, scanned the room, her mind calculating each word spoken, each gesture made by the representatives of the other species. The large hall was dark except for the vast beam of light cascading down from the dome above, illuminating the council's seats in an eerie glow. As she stood there, alone before the assembled masses, she felt the weight of her ancestors' legacy upon her shoulders. They had fought wars, crossed oceans, reached for the stars, and now, their descendants were standing at the edge of galactic politics. The council chamber buzzed with murmurs as representatives from various species discussed the ramifications of human inclusion. The Traller, a race of towering, reptilian beings with dark, stone-like skin, spoke first, their leader, General Volker, towering over the council platform. His deep, guttural voice echoed through the chamber. "You would have us accept these, humans? A species that has only recently developed warp technology, who are still shackled by their petty wars and internal strife. The Tralla have no place for such instability." His words, though measured, were laden with disdain. Alicia's lips tightened, but she refused to let her temper flare. She had been trained for moments like this, to remain calm and composed even in the face of open ridicule. "We understand your concerns, General Volker," she said, her voice steady, her eyes locked onto his. "But we've come a long way. We have learned from our mistakes, and we've evolved. Our past does not define us, it is our future that does." A ripple of muttering passed through the council. It was clear that many were still skeptical, but there were others who quietly observed, waiting for the debate to unfold. Next came the Florixians, a race of highly intellectual beings that communicated through light pulses rather than sound. Their representative, Zirith, a sleek, crystalline entity, projected a series of bright, intricate patterns in the air, which the council's translators swiftly converted into speech. "The Florixians have studied the human species for centuries." Zirith's voice was soft but resonated with power. "Their potential is undeniable. However, their aggressive nature and tendency to act without thought for the greater good could bring about catastrophe. A species so young, so raw, cannot be trusted with the delicate balance of galactic order." Alicia's fingers curled into fists as the implications of Zirith's words struck her. Yet, she had anticipated this argument. She had seen it all before, heard it in the debates among human leaders. She knew the weight of the burden she carried, and she would not allow the future of her people to be decided by fear. "You call it aggression," Alicia responded, her voice growing stronger. "We call it survival. We are not a perfect species, but we have learned. We have fought against tyranny, and we have triumphed. We've faced extinction on more than one occasion, yet we stand here, stronger, wiser, and ready for the next chapter." Her words hung in the air, echoing in the silence that followed. The room seemed to hold its breath, the eyes of the galaxy upon her. It was at that moment that Ambassador Lyra, a small but fierce member of the Talaki, a race known for their agility and sharp intellect, spoke up. Unlike the other representatives, her tone was not filled with disdain, but with curiosity. Admiral Thorne, your species has been at war for so long. Tell us, what would you do if you were granted membership in the Galactic Union? What would you bring to the table that we do not already have? The question struck a chord with Alicia, and for a moment she hesitated. She had prepared for the political arguments, but this was different. This was the moment when she had to reveal the true essence of humanity, the hope, the resilience, and the drive that had carried them through countless struggles. We bring a fire that cannot be extinguished, she said, her voice ringing with a newfound clarity. We bring the determination to protect what we love, the desire to learn, and the courage to face what others fear. We are not perfect, but we are willing to grow. We are not the strongest, but we are the most relentless. The council was silent as the weight of her words settled in. For a brief moment, Alicia could feel the tide shifting. It wasn't just about politics or power, it was about something deeper. It was about trust. Before anyone could speak again, a loud sound erupted from the back of the chamber. The heavy doors at the rear of the hall swung open, and a figure strode into the room. A human. It was Admiral Rook, an old rival of Alicia's, now representing the rogue faction of humans who had refused to submit to the Galactic Order. His presence in the council chamber could mean only one thing: trouble. As he walked down the center aisle, his eyes locked with Alicia's, a challenge lingering in the air between them. I think we've heard enough. Rook's voice boomed. Let's see if these council members are ready to truly deal with humanity. Or are they all talk? The tension in the room skyrocketed as every eye turned toward the new player in the game. The stakes had just been raised. This chapter introduces Alicia Thorne, the human representative, and her encounter with the galactic leaders who question humanity's place in the Union. The dialogue sets up the central conflict, giving readers a sense of the stakes and the challenges that lie ahead. The atmosphere in the council chamber had changed. Where once there had been a respectful, if skeptical, silence, now the air crackled with a tension too thick to ignore. Admiral Rook's sudden arrival was like a spark in a dry forest, igniting every faction's hidden fears and uncertainties. His presence was an undeniable declaration of war, both literal and ideological. Alicia Thorne, standing resolutely in the center of the chamber, braced herself for the chaos that was about to unfold. She had fought wars before, countless battles, both in the stars and on the ground. But this was different. This was a war of words, a battle for the very soul of humanity's future in the galaxy. And Admiral Rook, her former ally and now bitter adversary, was the first salvo. Rook's gaze swept over the assembly, his posture exuding the confidence of a man who had nothing to lose. His dark, military-grade uniform was a stark contrast to the more elegant garb of the alien delegates, with its sharp edges and combat insignia. He was a symbol of humanity's dark side, the rebellious, unrefined side that had clashed with the Galactic Union since its inception. I think we've heard enough, Rook repeated, louder this time, as he reached the center of the room. His eyes flicked briefly to Alicia, a mixture of disdain and challenge in his gaze. Let's stop pretending that the Council cares about human potential and growth. We all know why you're here, Admiral. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. The room shifted uneasily. A few of the more outspoken species, like the Tralla and the Florixians, exchanged glances, their discomfort palpable. This wasn't just a diplomatic discussion anymore. It was turning into a spectacle, one that could threaten to unravel everything the Galactic Union had built. Alicia's heart pounded in her chest. She had expected Rook to act out, but not so brazenly. His timing was impeccable in its disaster. The Council had been close, so close, to agreeing on a provisional membership for humanity, yet now, with his interruption, Rook threatened to undermine everything she had worked for. You see, General Volker, Rook sneered, his gaze now fixed on the Tralla leader. Humans are a threat, yes, but not in the way you think. We don't need galactic law or order to survive. We never have. And those of us who still remember what it's like to fight for our survival, we don't bow to bureaucrats. He emphasized the last word, his voice dripping with contempt. Alicia's pulse quickened. She couldn't let this continue. She had come this far, and there was no turning back now. She stepped forward, her boots echoing in the silent hall. Her voice rang out, commanding and calm. "Admiral Rook," she said, her eyes narrowing, "you have no right to speak for humanity anymore. Your actions have cast a shadow on the very people you once swore to protect. You've abandoned the ideals we fought for. You think we don't need the Union? You think we can survive on our own? Then why have we spent centuries fighting just to stand in this room today?" Rook's eyes flicked to Alicia, and for the first time, there was a flicker of doubt in his gaze. But he quickly masked it, turning back to the Council, his voice rising with a new intensity. "You misunderstand me, Admiral. It's not about survival. It's about freedom. The human race doesn't need a union to tell us how to live, what to believe. We've fought against oppressors for centuries. The last thing we need is another form of tyranny." His words were like a knife, sharp and cutting, each one meant to provoke. The tension in the room thickened as the various council members reacted. The Trawler grumbled, their reptilian eyes fixed on Rook, while the Florixians remained silent, their light pulses growing dim. Ambassador Lyra of the Talaki, who had earlier shown some support for Alicia, now seemed uncertain. She glanced nervously at the other representatives. Alicia's voice cut through the growing murmur. "You speak of freedom, Rook, but all I hear is anarchy. The Union isn't about oppression, it's about collaboration. It's about strengthening us all, learning from each other, ensuring that none of us stand alone against the chaos of the galaxy. Humanity has the chance to thrive because we are joining the Union, not in spite of it." A sharp laugh escaped Rook's lips. "You're just another puppet, Alicia. You've sold your soul to the Galactic Order. I came here to remind them all of what real humanity is. We don't bend to the will of others." He glanced around the room, daring anyone to disagree. The silence in the chamber was deafening. The representatives were divided, unsure of where to place their allegiance. Alicia could see it in their faces, the doubt, the hesitation. They had thought humanity would be a quick, easy ally, a species to be molded and shaped into conformity. But Rook's words had planted a seed of unease. Alicia took a step back, her eyes scanning the room. She had to reclaim control. She had to prove that humanity wasn't just a collection of warring factions, divided by chaos and unrest. They had the potential to lead, to inspire. It wasn't just about fighting for survival. It was about fighting for something greater. For unity, for peace, for a shared future. "General Volker," Alicia said, addressing the Trawler leader, "you see humanity as unstable. But what do you fear most? That we might surpass your species? That we might become a threat? Or do you fear that we'll show you that unity doesn't mean subjugation?" The Trawler leader's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the armrests of his chair. He said nothing, but the message was clear. He had been forced into a corner. The Trawler had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and the thought of another species threatening that dominance was terrifying. As the silence stretched, Zirith of the Florixians finally spoke. "Enough." The light pulse emanating from the crystalline being's body slowed as they projected their thoughts. "Admiral Thorn, Admiral Rook, your species are both filled with potential. But you must choose. Will you join the galaxy in cooperation, or will you remain divided, a faction unto yourselves, threatening the balance of everything we've worked for?" The weight of their words hung heavily in the air. Rook opened his mouth to respond, but Alicia spoke first, her voice calm yet commanding. "We will not choose division," she said firmly. "Humanity will join the Union, not as a follower, but as an equal. We will fight for our place, for the chance to show you what we are capable of. We will not back down." Rook's eyes darkened with a cold fury. He had underestimated Alicia, and now the stakes had changed. The battle for humanity's future had just begun. In this chapter, the stakes escalate as Admiral Rook confronts Admiral Alicia Thorn, challenging the notion of humanity joining the Galactic Union. Their ideological differences expose the raw conflict at the heart of the story, setting the stage for an impending confrontation that could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. The tension in the Galactic Council chamber had reached its zenith. The once lofty ideals of diplomacy had become tangled in a complex web of ambition, fear, and uncertainty. Alicia Thorne stood at the heart of it, unyielding and resolute, but even she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Admiral Rook, still standing defiantly near the center of the room, had forced the hand of every representative present. Humanity's future, her future, hung in the balance. The Council was no longer a quiet forum for polite debate. It had transformed into a crucible, where the very essence of humanity's place in the galaxy was being forged, and every word spoken was a potential weapon. Alicia glanced toward the balcony seats where the Talaki ambassador, Lyra, sat. She had been the first to show support for humanity's mission, but now Lyra's face was a study in conflict. The last few moments had rattled her, and Alicia could see the doubt creeping in. The Florixians remained silent, their glowing pulses the only sign of their presence, but Alicia knew the delicate balance of their minds was wavering. The Trawler, on the other hand, were rigid and unwavering. General Volker's gaze remained locked on Rook, but it was clear he was waiting for an opening, an excuse to declare his verdict against humanity. It would be a disastrous move, but it was one he was prepared to make if Rook's words managed to tip the scales. Admiral Rook, sensing the gravity of the moment, took a step forward. His voice was filled with the kind of fire Alicia had once admired, an intensity that drove him to act, but one that now threatened to consume him. "Do you hear them, Admiral?" Rook's voice echoed through the hall, directed at Alicia. "The Council is afraid. You all fear humanity. You fear what we could become. The Union will never accept us. You think that by bending the knee to their order you'll win approval? No, Alicia, this is our moment to reshape the galaxy. To carve our own path." He turned, sweeping his hand toward the representatives. "Why let yourselves be ruled by this self-proclaimed authority? We can stand tall without them. The galaxy is ours, Alicia. You could lead us. We could lead them all." The words hung in the air, a challenge thrown like a gauntlet at the feet of every representative present. Alicia remained silent, her eyes steady. She had known this moment would come. She had known Rook would try to rally the others, twist the narrative in his favor. But this was not the path she would take. "No," Alicia said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "What you offer, Rook, is chaos. You speak of freedom, but it is a freedom born of destruction. You would burn the galaxy to the ground in the name of your freedom, and for what? So that humanity can stand alone, isolated and despised? That is not our future." A low murmur ran through the Council as her words resonated across the room. The Trawler appeared unmoved, but General Volker's sharp eyes glinted with a trace of something, curiosity, perhaps. The Florixians' pulses flickered brighter in response, their internal conflict beginning to show. Alicia stepped forward, her gaze meeting that of the Talaki ambassador, Lyra, who was now watching her intently. Lyra, who had once believed in the promise of cooperation, was wavering. Alicia could see it in her eyes. Lyra was torn between the ideal of unity and the dangerous allure of Rook's rhetoric. "Ambassador Lyra," Alicia said, addressing the small, agile representative, "what we seek is not domination. We seek partnership. Humanity has fought against its own darkness for centuries. We have stumbled, but we have learned. We have grown stronger, not through conquest, but through the bonds we have formed with one another. That is what the Union represents, a chance to become more than the sum of our parts." Lyra's eyes softened, but her mind was still at war. "And what of Rook's words? What of humanity's independence? Can you truly surrender that to a higher authority?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. Alicia met her gaze with unwavering conviction. "We are not surrendering our identity, Ambassador. We are choosing to forge a new identity alongside others who seek the same: cooperation, mutual respect, shared knowledge. The Union will make us stronger, not weaker. It will give us the opportunity to protect not just our species, but all species." There was a pause. For a moment, it seemed as though Lyra might speak again, but instead, the Florixian representative, Zirith, interjected, their voice a soft hum of light pulses that resonated with an air of quiet authority. Admiral Thorne is correct, Zereth said, their pulses shifting into a complex pattern. Humanity's path has been one of hardship, but it has also been one of remarkable resilience. The Union does not ask you to erase your identity, Rook. It asks you to recognize that together, we are stronger than we could ever be apart. Your species, with its will to survive, can contribute to this, but only if you choose to join, not dominate. The room fell silent again, the weight of Zereth's words settling in. Rook's face twisted in frustration, his fists clenching. He had never been one to back down, but now the realization was dawning on him. The tide was turning. Enough! Rook shouted, his voice rising in anger. You think you can control us? You think you can control humanity? We will not be a tool for your utopian dreams. I'll take my chances outside your precious Union. And I'll make sure humanity does the same. But as he spoke, something shifted. The other council members, who had been hesitant until now, began to stir. The Talaki ambassador nodded, the weight of Alicia's words finding their mark. General Voker's stance, which had been rigid and opposed, softened. He exchanged a glance with Zereth, and there was a silent understanding between them. The Trowler were not so blind as to overlook the strength in unity. Admiral Rook turned, preparing to storm out of the chamber, his expression dark with defiance. But before he could take another step, Alicia's voice rang out once more, cutting through his retreat. Rook, she said, her tone calm but firm. If you leave now, you leave behind the very people you once fought for. We don't need another war. Humanity doesn't need another enemy. The choice is yours, our choice. Join us, or stand alone. But I will not let your ego decide the fate of us all. For a long, drawn-out moment, Rook stood there, his back to her. The entire room waited, suspended in that singular moment of decision. Rook's fist tightened again, but this time, there was something else in his stance, an unwilling resignation. Finally, he turned, his gaze cold but resigned. This isn't over, Thorne, he muttered before striding out of the chamber, his steps echoing into the distance. And just like that, the chamber was silent again. Alicia exhaled slowly, her heart still racing. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt the weight of possibility on her shoulders, not the crushing force of defeat. The future of humanity had been decided, not by a single individual, but by the resolve of a species united in purpose. In this chapter, the ideological battle reaches its peak as Alicia Thorne confronts Admiral Rook's defiant stance, fighting for humanity's place in the Galactic Union. The chapter emphasizes the theme of unity versus division, with humanity's future hanging in the balance.